We have a little bit of an awkward microphone situation. They're going to be sharing it, much like a doo-wop group. So, do you guys feel comfortable swinging it like that? Is that okay?
I can swing.
You can swing with that. I thought maybe I should sit down. I thought we'd start by, if you guys could talk about the teen character or characters in your novel, and talk, just introduce them, and also talk a little bit about why you wanted to write in the voice of somebody who's a teenager. Yeah, the microphone dictates. The magic mic.
After that bear blowjob story, this microphone's freaking me out. Maybe I'm a totally self-deceiving person. I guess I wasn't aware that I wrote a book about a teenager. I thought I wrote a book about sort of the 80s, mid-80s recovered memory syndrome, and then the moment also that sort of happened at about the same time, the real overturning of Freud's Freud's theories about how people fantasize about their sexual past, and this was in many cases overturned by feminist psychoanalysts, and this sort of interesting intersection, I guess, of all these I guess modes of storytelling is how I sort of looked at it, and I personally feel like therapy has become our modern day mode of oral storytelling, where we kind of make ourselves the sort of heroic protagonist, overcoming terrible feats if it's in the 80s, usually it was a terrible incest situation, which we hadn't known about until just last week when we got hypnotized. Anyway, but according to all of the assessments that I've read of my book, I apparently have written about girls' erotic lives. So, I guess though I thought I was writing about those other things, that's in fact what I unwittingly wrote about. So.
And can you talk a little bit about actually Mary, about what happens to her?
Well, I can't tell you that. That would be a spoiler.
That's right. You have to read the book.
Yes. You know, the whole idea was essentially like I was sort of formulating this book during the time of the Elizabeth Smart disappearance, and maybe it was just me, but it felt like every week there was another kind of white middle-class girl that disappeared. It seemed to be very chic to go missing. And if you did go missing, you were kind of guaranteed to get a lot of media play. And so I just thought, you know, I can't believe someone hasn't orchestrated their disappearance yet, just to get a little attention, you know? So that was sort of my kind of plot hook into it. And then I ended up getting a lot more interested, I guess, in, you know, because with all of these media stories, and the Elizabeth Smart story in particular, there's so much attention paid to the disappearance, and then when they reappear, you actually never find out what happened to them. So you get no closure. So I was sort of looking at all the people who sort of compete over telling that story, which never gets told. Okay, I've talked enough. Here we go. No, Bear, blowjob to you.
Wow. I wrote about two kids named Sam and Haley, and I guess the origins were twofold. There were these two kids that I came across a long time ago, and they were and they had absolutely nothing, and they were just sitting on a corner begging for change, but they were madly in love with each other. They kept holding on to each other and lusting after each other and protecting each other. And I remember at the time just feeling this intense envy, just that they had nothing, and yet they had each other, and that was all that mattered. And I think that certainly resonated with certain elements of my life when I was a teenager, and I felt that I think it's a kind of power that comes around when you turn 16, which is you're not quite an adult yet, you know, you haven't been recognized by the law, and yet you're starting to feel like an adult, and you have, you know, your sexuality is starting to bloom, and your desire to be free of the structures around you are starting to take on a greater form. And it's very powerful. It's, you know, it's powerful enough to lead kids to to stock up on ammunition and walk into a high school and start blowing people away. I mean, it's a very, very powerful force. And another element was that in Los Angeles, at least, I don't know if this is true in Austin, we always get in the mail these thin slips of paper with this sort of blue-purple ink with faces of missing children on them and with their information. And I couldn't throw them away. I just had this box, and I just kept putting them in the box, and they just kind of kept haunting me. And so these were these two things that were kind of kicking around in my head, and I think part of it was I was actually growing up, and I was fortunate enough to go on this extraordinary rock and roll tour with my sister, and we came to Texas actually, and we were opening up for Depeche Mode, and so there were thousands of people who were coming around, and so I started hearing all these stories about their youth and their dreams, and I remember thinking about how important that time was for me and how important that time was for a lot of kids. And, you know, at the end of the day, I wanted to tell that story of what it would be like to be two 16-year-olds who decided to really go for it, to fulfill that longing, to fulfill everything that moment promises, to be free of school, of parents, of law, of everything, and just fly on the road, and to see what would happen if you took it to its very, very limits. Well, that's the beginning.
Great.